one of my favorite topics. So, welcome back to the podcast. We're going to get into something that many of you are probably living through if you've been trying to change your body for years and you've been consistent, because we are told all the typical things. Are you focusing on your protein? Are you focusing on getting your macronutrients in? Are your macros this, that, and the other? Your macro check. Do you want this free macro calculator? You need to track your steps because walking is amazing. But despite all of this consistency, you're still not seeing the body composition changes that you want. This is going to be a deep dive into something that I do actually come across a lot of women asking me about. I see it a lot in groups as well. People asking about this little bit on their body, why they can't see the muscle definition. They've been doing the programs and nada. Every single time they do a diet, they're still not happy with what they see. They think it's something wrong with, maybe they should be carb cycling, et cetera, et cetera. The very things that we are taught to focus on end up diverting our attention away from the most critical things that we actually need to focus on. We don't know where to look. And when we do know where to look, we don't know how to manipulate it or what to do with it. Or when we do, we only do it for a short period of time because of what we're taught. Like, I remember this time when I first started, the whole thing was to sign up with a coach for the minimum period, and then you should know how to do it yourself. The way of having a coach before everything was factored around, let's get you on stage or let's get you losing weight. Is it no wonder that we find ourselves trapped not knowing where to focus? That is what I'm trying to dig into now. It's like, what is the very thing that we need to be focusing on? What are we missing? Why is it that some people have the success and we don't? And I'm not talking about time factor here. Like, yes, time is a factor, but you can put all the time in the world into it. But are you doing the right things? Or are we still caught up in what we're told leads to progress? Caught up with weighing themselves on the scale all of the time, as though that's going to tell them if they're making progress, as though that's going to give them the answers they want, or the comfort they want, or the certainty that they're moving in the right direction, when the scale literally has zero to do with your body recomposing. Like, it might go up, it might go down. Who bloody knows? That's what body recomposition is. It fluctuates depending on where your body is. And this is where context comes in. So everything is connected, and we can be focusing on the most perfect nutrition and still not see results. Maybe you've tried to eat more in the past to build muscle and you still did not see the results that you wanted, or you did mini bulks, mini cuts, which you should know by now from prior podcasts. They don't work. They're just glorified yo-yo dieting that ends up making you softer over time. At the end of the day, you just end up wondering, well, you end up thinking so many things. We end up getting in our heads, especially when we're just lying in bed, looking at the ceiling, thinking of all the time that we've already spent doing this shit. The fact that you have to get up and do it all again tomorrow and hope for the results that you want. It was always in bed every single night before I went to sleep that I would make all of these promises to myself and scroll my phone for the perfect answer. But it's that reason that I am so passionate about all of this, because you're spending all this time trying to find what this answer is, following all of these directions, still ending up either with the same outcome or in a completely different area with a completely different picture. And while all these things are important, the nutrition, the steps, the making sure that everything you're doing is, I guess, healthy, so to speak, it's missing out on the most fundamental part of body recomposition. While not eating enough protein is extremely detrimental to your health and to your muscle mass and to your body goals and recovery, I could go on. It isn't the thing that's going to build your body. And just eating more, I always get questions of people wondering why they eat more and just get softer or fatter, or they still don't see the results they want. Yes, in theory, more food equals more building blocks. You can't really build a physique without it, but that's the purpose of nutrition. It's not about nutrition, but what that nutrition is there to fuel, what that nutrition is there to support. And that is training. Training is the driver. Training is the signal. Training is the reason your body builds muscle. But you need to be sending the right signal. And then that signal needs to be progressively louder over time. Because you can be lifting weights, but just because you're lifting weights and just because you're lifting heavy or lifting hard or exhausting yourself in the gym, and it feels like it's working, it feels like it's burning, you feel like you're growing, it doesn't mean you are. And this is where that nutrition does come in, because yes, you do need to eat at least maintenance calories, but we obsess over food way more than we should be obsessing over our training. And there is a period of time where you can still be seeing results with focusing all in on training and still having really shitty nutrition up until a certain point. That's the beauty of being a newbie. And then as soon as you get on to more progressive, more intentional training, you start seeing more newbie results. But then there's the bottleneck, and that's when the food comes in to support it, and you can't just be haphazarding it anymore. That's the bridge that a lot of people miss. That intentional training, that progressive performance, and what that entails. Unless your body has a damn good reason to be using the food that you're giving it, nothing is going to grow. Muscle is so energy intensive. It takes effort to build and maintain muscle. Maintaining muscle in itself, muscle burns more calories than fat does. But then as soon as you add the process of training that muscle to build that muscle and then recover because of the tear and the breakdown and the et cetera, that's a whole other stimulus. That's a whole other lot of calorie burn. That is why you do not build muscle in a deficit. You can't build muscle in a deficit unless you're a newbie. You need to be eating at least maintenance. That's where this whole like lean build comes from. It's not eating in a deficit, it's eating in maintenance. There was a study where there were two groups. One was eating extremely high protein with more calories, and the other one wasn't. And one was strength training. The other one was just dabbling in whatever protocol that they were given. It wasn't like to get stronger, it was just on and off stuff. And they lost 25% muscle from the whole of the weight that was lost, while the ones that were doing strength training only lost 5% muscle. In a deficit, you are not putting yourself in a place to be building. So if you're not seeing the results you want, yes, that is why. But if your nutrition is sound enough and you're still trying to micromanage it, trying to perfect your protein, find the best high protein snacks, trying to find the best program online, why you're not getting to the results you want. That's what this podcast is about. It's just that I always go on tangents at the beginning because I try to, like, that's what this podcast is for. I try to give context because I don't want to promise you that fixing this one thing that I'm going to be talking about, you can do all of that and still not see the results you want if you're underfeeding it. Because there was also a period in my life where I was training properly to a proper program, but what I was missing was the calories. I was in a place where I actually needed to eat into a slight surplus. I saw myself as fluffy. I saw myself as I didn't like how I felt in my clothes. I don't know whether it was or not, but you can feel subjectively bigger in your clothes without actually being bigger in your clothes. That's the power of the mind. And I stopped myself from going into the surplus that I needed back then to build the muscle that I wanted. So I was just burning myself out. So there's that context to it as well. And this is why having a coach is so important, because you do not see yourself as you are. We covered just then that we need enough food to support our training. What exactly is it that we need to do to see the results that we want? Meeting you where you are, as soon as you start to eat more food, you're going to start feeling a lot more energized. You're going to start feeling better. That can give us the illusion that we're making some progress forward in whatever we are doing. So before you start spiraling and questioning hormones or your age or some other nutritional trend from TikTok or Instagram or whatever the hell else, we need to dig into what it is that our training is like. You don't get glutes by eating better. You don't get an hourglass figure by proteining it on. The stimulus that we need to send our muscles is one of enough tension. Now, what is tension? There's the load that we lift on the bar. There's also how we lift it. One thing that I find myself repeating constantly is that we need to create full body tension, which requires learning how to brace. We know that muscle, as I mentioned, is energy intensive. It's not just going to create more of itself unless it has a damn good reason to do so. So what is effective training? What constitutes effective training? If you're watching the video, I'm going to share with you my screen, this particular guide that I have put together. If you want this guide, I will share it with you as well. You just have to message me on Instagram for it, just like DM me trained, and I will share it with you. The first thing that we want to be doing is making sure that we are training effective reps. What are effective reps? They're typically the last 2 to 3 reps that really get you shaking. They move slow. Many times I try to challenge my girls to try and force up that last rep. And before giving up on that very last rep, just try and keep grinding it for a little bit longer and see how long you can keep pushing. This is where learning how to brace comes in, learning how to lock in comes in. If you're doing upper body, learning how to use leg drive, learning how to really transfer force from your lower body to your upper body. And the same comes with lower body. You want to make sure that everything is nice and tight. A lot of people do not know how to brace and use their lats. That's one where I would say get a coach so they can actually help you individually. But that is part of effective training as well. You need to know that stuff. We also need to make sure that the exercises we pick are specific to what we want and where we are right now. So I wouldn't just give you a 4 to 6 rep range if you've never truly trained to failure within the 6 to 12 rep range. Training within the 12 to 15 rep range is a really good start, and learning how to fail with the 12 reps. Many people don't use 12 to 15 rep max weight for the 12 to 15 rep range. They just train to hit 12 to 15 reps. Once you can effectively train between that 10 to 15 rep range, going from 15 to 10, then it's about putting most of your programming between the 6 to 10 rep range. Do you have anything we need to work around? Like, do we need to strengthen your back? Do we need to practice more reps? Because sometimes more reps is really good for practicing a movement, but we can also just do more sets and less reps so that you don't fatigue over the reps, because higher rep ranges are extremely fatiguing. The biggest mistake that I see people make is not actually following a structured program that is made for them. Many structured programs that you can download online or with apps, they typically change every 4 weeks with no rhyme or reason. And even those with rhyme or reason, they're not actually progressing you based off your feedback, based off your progress, based off your adaptation. And that's where a lot of people go wrong. It's not a progressive plan. It's a changing plan, a structure that has no long-term structure. You want to be progressing the same basic lifts over time and sticking to them long enough to outgrow them. Many don't stick to them long enough to truly outgrow them. They think that when progress slows, that that's outgrowing them, that they don't work anymore, but it's actually when things are really challenging. And sometimes it's still keeping them in and still trying to get stronger on them, because anything that you gain from there is actually muscle growth. Muscle makes you stronger. Just because you're getting stronger does not mean you're building muscle, which is why you can still get stronger in a deficit, but not be building muscle. You want to make sure that the exercises you do choose are training the target muscles to failure, which many times they don't, because either you can't execute it properly, so something else fatigues before it, not know how to hinge properly, your balance gives out first, your heart rate gives out first. There are many times where we need to work on exercises to get better at them. You don't just train purely for the sake of maximizing hypertrophy. Because if you miss learning the fundamental skills of fundamental movement patterns, you're going to bottleneck yourself. And if you don't learn how to do single leg moves here and there, you're going to bottleneck yourself too and give yourself injuries and niggles. Not everything needs to be a hypertrophy exercise. There's skill exercises and there's hypertrophy exercises and there's other things tailored to you. I program my girls based off their needs, their analysis. So that's that one. Effective execution is key as well. You want to start and end the movement with intent, which is kind of where doing high reps all the time can really fatigue you. But it's also why it becomes extremely important to be on a smart program. You can accumulate all the volume you want on paper, and it can feel hard and it can feel heavy. If you don't rest enough between sets, which I put here as well, if you don't rest enough between sets, it can feel extremely heavy the next set, but it's not your potential. It's just because you didn't rest enough. And the same goes for if you don't fuel your training enough, it can feel hard and heavy, but if you actually fueled yourself more, you would have got a lot more out of that session. This is where it all fits in. Like, yes, the stuff I mentioned before, it is still important, but it's important in as much as supporting this and allowing you to train at your best, because it's training at your best and progressing performance that leads to physique change. The further along you go, the slower the progress and the more effort, the more nuances that need to come in, but you don't need to start there. It's so much easier to stick to when you've built it up. Keep a logbook, film your lifts, see if your exercises are slowing down over time. making sure that your reps match each other. You don't cut depth halfway through and then call it progressive overload. Like, you actually want them in there for quite a few months. A lot of people do too much and never get the super compensation effect. Or they think that training glutes every day is going to be the way there, or they do glute days or chest days or back days, which I've spoke about in a prior podcast as well. Be aware of exercise order. Sometimes the order that you do things can make other things enhance a particular thing. Like, for example, if you're doing leg curls before squats, that could really help your squats out because it pumps up the hamstrings and helps your knees. Or if you do them before hip thrusts, it might help you feel your glutes more. Or if you do Bulgarian split squats before before Romanian deadlifts, it might help your Romanian deadlifts more because it opens up your hips. One of the biggest things I would say is if you're not using lifting straps, you're missing out completely on the results that you could be seeing. You need lifting straps. And if you're in a place to then need a belt, I would also recommend using a belt. So other things that I would consider, making sure that you learn how to hinge and brace, because your glutes are going to grow primarily in its length and ranges, which means the depths of a squat. It means split squats if you actually get the range of motion good enough. Many times the accessory work that people do is not effectively approached. You just rush through them because you got the main lifts over you. You should still do warm-up sets for it, but your warm-up sets aren't something that are meant to exhaust you. Just pick maybe 1 or 2 weights depending on what the exercise is and do 1 or 2 reps of each. You don't need to do like 10. You shouldn't be doing 10 reps at all for a warm-up set. Like, it should be in the lower rep range. The warm-ups are there to get your body primed, to get you primed and your brain primed to move through the right positions, to engage the right muscles, to focus on what needs to start the movement. A lot of people get their back training wrong. Doing warm-up sets for your back training is probably the biggest change that you can make to your training starting today, and learning how to use your shoulder blades. I found that putting a couple of drills in my clients' workouts have led to them using their shoulder blades so much more effectively in all the other exercises, but you need to know what to be aware of in order to improve it. You should be tracking your performance, meaning that frequent program script switching should have you see that you're not actually properly progressing over time, but it's hard to do that if you don't know what to look for. If you're going to be changing programs every 4, 6, 8 weeks or wanting program changes all the time, you're doing that at the cost of effective training. Make sure that what you have on paper is something that has strategy tailored to you and your growth, not just changing it every single month. It's very hard to do that if you don't understand the importance of this stuff. Doing good enough for long enough is the answer. Trying to rush it is not. Every single time you try to rush it, you'll keep finding that after all of that time, you're still at the same place. We really need to know what to focus on with our training and get excited about it. Find ways to be excited about it, because this shit takes time. And that's why there's always this illusion of progress and people get tripped and trapped in it all, because it is so much easier to control your nutrition. It's so much easier to worry about your protein, worry about whether your macros should change, your calories should change, if you're eating enough. Maybe do I have to do anything different with my macros? I remember way back when it was a common thing for coaches to change macros for their clients every single week. They did check-ins. If XYZ happened, then you get a tiny little macro changes. It's like that stuff's there to buy you in. It doesn't do anything. A lot of people use other people's metrics or just familiar metrics because it feels like they have control over something. Like, my clothes are feeling looser, but it's like, okay, but where's your starting point? Because if you're starting with a lot of fat to lose, then yeah, okay, be ready to toss out all your old clothes and start buying smaller clothes. But if you're starting with a relative average frame, like, yes, even average frame, not just skinny fat or no shape and pretty small, which many of us don't see us that way. We always feel the biggest we are because we're in our own skin. Like I mentioned at the beginning as well. Like, maybe you might have to buy bigger clothes, and maybe you might have to work with the thought and the discomfort and work through the fact that we believe that to be failure because we have to buy bigger clothes, because that's what we're taught. Like, oh my God, I have to buy bigger clothes. What is this saying about me? Like, that is scary. No wonder this is so overwhelming for you if that's kind of the thought that's lingering in your mind. So many people turn off from that stuff because it's like, well, I don't want to listen to you because I don't want to gain fat. I'm not for that. It's just that the process you're doing needs to have a process. Like, your process has a process. and chasing fast progress and using familiar metrics that we've been told, which most of the industry is around losing fat, losing weight. There's not a lot said about the metrics to chase for building because it's boring. Like it's the same shit over and over again. It's just that the exciting stuff happens in the coaching. It happens in the filming. It happens in improving you. It happens in getting you excited about particular things. Maybe you'll end up finding other things to talk to your coach about as well, but have nothing to do with your nutrition and your training. Maybe you'll start to talk about life things and exciting things, hobbies, because everything else starts to just move along nicely and you can just talk about how to improve particular lifts. So no, it's not your age and it's not your hormones. It's usually what we're doing that influences our hormones and our age. And if you are perimenopausal or postmenopausal, your hormones have a lot to say for how you feel in your body. Yes, but it has nothing to say for the results you can or can't get because your body works the same as anyone else's body. It's just going to be fucking slower, way slower, because you don't have the same hormonal environment as someone who's younger. So you can either make it longer by flip-flopping, which is going to be one for the next podcast. Well, the one after, or you can just commit to the process and try to become friends with discomfort because it's going to be uncomfortable regardless if you've never done it before. That's kind of exciting to know because if you've never done it before and you've never got the results you've wanted before, then you're actually giving yourself a chance to grow, giving yourself a chance to see the results you want. It all comes with refocusing on performance and seeing nutrition as the best support for that, because nutrition is there to facilitate recovery, to facilitate your growth. It's a vital supporting role. What you eat matters too, because that's essential for optimal body function, for your metabolism, for how you feel every day. Because if you feel like shit, that's going to impact so much more than you realize. You're not always going to have it perfect, and that doesn't mean that you're going to be losing muscle or going backwards. It just means that isn't up to the usual standard that you usually do it. You need to stop being so hard on yourself because this is a long process. What is the rush? The more that you keep comparing with other people and seeing what other people are doing instead of just focusing on your own shit, the more that you're stealing away from the best that you can be. Training is the primary driver of physique change. Focus there and give it enough attention and enough time. The nutrition stuff, there are so many depending factors on where this, where that, and that's why I have a host of podcasts and why I'm open to you suggesting more and more. But micromanaging what our calories and food are instead of going all into what your training is doing isn't going to help. You cannot build a body without stimulus because there's simply no signal for it to build new muscle. And are you even sending the right signal? And is it actually progressing over time? Are you doing your lifts correctly? One of my clients came to me, she was eating enough. She wasn't in diet mode and she was following a program, but her lifts weren't proper ranges of motion. She wasn't doing things to full depth. Like right now, she's finally squatting below parallel, where her single leg movements actually look like real exercises. It's really exciting. She's learning how to train. That was the only reason stopping her. And then I've had other clients come to me to just look after their nutrition. Many of them still do not see the results they want physique-wise. When they were in fat loss phases and I looked after that, they saw the fat loss results they wanted because that's what we need for fat loss. In fat loss, nutrition is the primary driver. Training just needs to be there to keep muscle. You need to focus on building muscle to keep muscle. But training and behavior change, well, you don't just manipulate training for that stuff because nutrition for fat loss, because if it was that simple, you would have already had the results that you wanted because you know that it's just a calorie deficit. But there's reasons that you can't stick to it. I'm going on a side tangent again, but it's important because yes, nutrition and micromanaging all of this bullshit does matter for fat loss. Micromanaging the shit out of it matters for fat loss the further you get into it. Just like with training, micromanaging the shit out of it, the longer you've been doing it, matters a lot. Training is for building the physique that you want. And then bouts of micromanaging the shit out of your nutrition for fat loss is. And you can see incredible body composition results just hovering in maintenance. And if you still have a lot of fat to lose, like I mentioned on the last podcast, it doesn't matter whether you have this fat to lose if you are not in the place to start a diet. Because you will never lose that fat without getting yourself mentally, physically, and emotionally there first. Because it is draining. That is why you're stuck. Because you're spent. Your brain is spent. Your body has had enough with you. And I'm pretty sure you've lost fat at some point in your life before. I'm pretty sure many times before you've seen the weight go down. You know how to do that. It's getting the body composition results that you're proud of and that last. And like I mentioned at the start, it is very hard to build a body that you're proud of if you're going to skip the process, because that is where the confidence is built. Realizing you are so much more capable than you realized, realizing that you know how to maintain this now. There's no fear of losing it anymore. There's no fear of gaining the weight back, where so many people are living in a constant fear of gaining fat and never being able to lose it again, of losing their results. So then they live in this chronic shell, this chronic, like you could still be eating in maintenance and finally get yourself to a place where you're eating enough food and eating more. But that doesn't take away from the fact that you're not thriving because you don't feel free. You feel like you're constantly having to validate yourself with a scale or with something, with body checks. What's going to happen when you turn 60 or 70? Are you still going to keep on that same path, flipping between fat loss and eating more, or just hovering around, still not happy, and then picking yourself apart more because of the inevitable shift to your belly of fat? Because you are going to have fat primarily stored in your belly when you lose your hormones. It's just that you don't just gain fat because you all of a sudden are in perimenopause. No, that needs a calorie surplus, and that needs you to stop doing the usual things that you're doing. It's just that all the hormonal fluctuations impact what you're currently doing because it makes you feel like ass half the time. And that's okay, because you can lose it when it's time. But you need to give yourself compassion and not keep shaming yourself and shooting yourself down for it, because that's just going to add to more fatigue and more distress and stop you even moving forward. You can't get results without self-compassion. And self-compassion is doing the shit that you need to do. It's not letting yourself off the hook. It's calling yourself out when you need to get called out. My other client, she came to me to try to help her boost up her protein intake. And while, yes, that helped tremendously in how she felt and all the other metrics, her body wasn't changing shape. She felt like she was going nowhere. And she said, it's just annoying because I've been training since I was 22 and I still don't look like I lift. I finally pulled her into my training program. And now she's showing up with effort. She has intention. She's more excited than ever. Now she's actually starting to see little baby lumps of muscle. I would also want to add on to this. Are you chasing two goals at once? That isn't going to help you either. Like I mentioned before, with the deficit and with the building muscle, you need to figure out what it is you need. Your fat loss phases should be short and intentional. If you have a lot of fat to lose, then spend the time getting yourself in a place to lose that first. You should be using the same amount of time to build up as much training capacity as possible. Then you can maintain so much more muscle while you're dieting down. It's going to make it a lot more effective. You're going to have a shit ton of muscle memory left there. Individual training is what's needed. That's tailored to your body, to how your lifts are going, to your recovery, and to your progress. Are you genuinely striving to make measurable progress through lifting heavier weights, through improving your form, through getting stronger, through making sure that you are training intentionally? And you do know that it does require a lot more patience over time and not just changing programs because nothing's moving on your logbook, which does happen. And that's where a lot of people get trapped. If you want me to look over your training, if you want me to take the guesswork out of your training, to look for the nuances that you probably aren't seeing in your own programming, in your own lifts, so that you can get your physique to the next level, then shoot me a message on Instagram or on Facebook and just write the word train and I'll see what I can do to help you. I'll ask you what you're currently doing. I'll try to see where you're going wrong and we can go from there. But just make sure that what you are doing is something that has a pathway forward. It's not going to have a pathway forward if all you can think of is the next calorie deficit, because that should not be a default and it should not be the end goal. It is only one method within the whole process and it should be the shortest one. So that is time for you to do some psychology work on the psychology of progress kind of thing, because it sucks if you don't feel like you actually have clarity forward. And it's hard to do that on your own. So do get a coach and make sure you're actually willing and committed to do the thing, to do the discomfort, to do the uncomfortable things, because that is what's going to make the difference. I love you all and I hope this helps, and you'll hear me on the next podcast.